for number 5 in our video series. And today we're going to talk about weeds in your garden. And the important thing about actually understanding and dealing with weeds is that Mother Nature absolutely hates to be naked. So the soil in your garden wants to be clothed. So what it does, if it's got bare spaces, it's going to take over with weeds. And unfortunately, weeds will bury your plants that you do want to see. So early spring is pretty much the best time to get at weeds. But here in Pollock Park, we've got over 30 garden beds, and we've got about 20 volunteers. So weeds can certainly get away on us. We did start early spring, but as you can see, we are quite surrounded by weeds in this garden. So now before we start weeding, let's talk about safety in the garden. I've seen people come in without gloves, with cotton gloves, with short pants, with flip-flops, all kinds of things. So the most important thing about gardening is that you need to be safe. So you need to get yourself a pair of really good gardening gloves. And this is a type of rubber here. So this protects my hands from, first of all, from any kind of bacteria that's found in soil. If you've got cuts in your hands and you get that bacteria in your hands, you could end up with a trip to emergency. So you want to make sure you got your hands protected. I got these at Costco, but they're available everywhere. But don't get just cotton, you want to get with the rubber. A good pair of sturdy shoes, because you're going to be in areas where you could fall if you don't have the right shoes on, and you don't want to do that because safety first. So I love my boots, my gardening boots. A lot of people wear a good sturdy pair of running shoes, but you have to be ready to get dirty. Another thing you need to do is wear long pants, because a lot of the plants we're working in, they could have thorns, they could have, some of them give off a sap that can be irritating to some people's skin, and you're just protecting yourself, insects, all kinds of things. So you want to wear long pants. Should wear long sleeves. I have a bit of trouble with that, but it's actually very safe in a garden putting on long sleeves. Protects you again from thorns, insects, sun, and the sap that comes from some of the plants that you're working with. Another thing is a hat. Wearing a hat, especially on a sunny day. We're very lucky today. It's a nice kind of mixed bag. It's so beautiful in the park here. And then sunscreen, of course, because you're long periods of time working in an area, and sometimes you can get carried away and forget that you are sitting in the sunshine. You want to have water. We're very lucky here. We've got water all through the park that we can grab a drink. And finally, you want to make sure that you come with tools. Some people come, they've got something they picked up at a drugstore or the dollar store, and that's not safe. You can really hurt yourself if you haven't got the good, sharp, quality tools. I picked this bucket up at, I believe, Home Depot. Came with this cover. The cover's got all kinds of pockets. And then we started collecting really good quality tools, and I'll talk a little bit about that. There's, we make sure we maintain these tools, because if you have tools that are not sharp, again, you can hurt yourself in the garden. And then this is my treasure, because again, you want to make sure you're safe in the garden, and some people have back issues or knee problems or haven't exercised for a long time. So you want to be safe when you're working in a garden, and stay ergonomically positioned. So I do all my gardening with my very favorite stool that I picked up at IKEA a long time ago. Some people use a knee pad. Some people use a little garden bench that has all the tool pockets in it. But this is really important. So tools are so important. It's kind of like any hobby you have, any kind of woodworking you do, anything you do that involves creating something. So today we're working in the garden, we're creating something. I'm just noticing a hummingbird and a little woodpecker talking to each other. So you want to make sure that you come with all the right tools. I kind of feel like a doctor. I've got my tool kit, and I can get the work done without having to run around looking for a tool. So we'll start with this. I love the Japanese tools. This one's called the Japanese Kana tool. I like to call it a Japanese hoe. Has a very, very sharp edge, and with some of our weeds, to get rid of them, you need to go under the soil and pull it out. So it needs a little bit of a twist, but it's very, very sharp, and it is probably one of my favorite tools. I have another favorite tool. I have lots of favorite tools. This one's called a hori knife, and it's got blades down either side. I use this one rather than a shovel or a little spade because it cuts through the soil, and you can even cut some soft roots if you're running into an area where you need to get roots out to get the weed out. This is my very favorite tool, along with this very favorite tool. And then we have the Ika squid hoe. This one, when you come out with this one, everybody kind of runs. But this is great for very hard soil, to get weeds out of hard soil, and weeds like horsetail love the very poor drainage type soil. So it's a massive one to go into. This is more specific. This one I use in my own yard for getting dandelions or buttercup out of my little lawn spaces where I'm not really keen to have them there. So this one's really specific, and it goes down and it pulls the weed out. There's a spade. I very rarely use a spade, but a lot of people are very comfortable with a spade. This one is, again, this is high quality spade. These tools, most of them, we've got them from either West Coast Seeds or Lee Valley. You really know you've got the quality in the tool, and that they'll last for years. And then you need to maintain these tools. And then this one, which I keep losing, is the secateurs or the shears, pruning shears. This is great for, horsetail, where you have to go down and you have to cut right at the base of the plant to get rid of it. So you're going to need pruning shears. I've got some bigger ones here too. If I need to get roots out, these are big secateurs, and I can get roots under the ground that are in the way of my getting weeds out. In a bit, I'm going to show you how to remove a pretty nasty weed out of your garden called ground elder or goutweed. And you really have to get in there and dig it out. So a shovel is very important. This is my favorite shovel because it's made for a woman. So it's a little bit shorter, it's sharper, and it really kind of helps with my back and everything that I've got it all set up properly. So this is going to be used, and a pitchfork is another method to get out a large swaths of weeds that have taken over your bare spaces. We're now at a point where we're going to learn about some of the weeds that we need to get out of our gardens. Right now we're in an area that's on the edge of a new garden that we're planting here in Pollock Park. So we want to work very hard to keep these invasives out of our garden. Metro Vancouver Invasive Species Group has published a list, and it's worthwhile to look at it and to understand if you've got any of these very, very invasive weeds in your gardens. For example, English ivy. Somehow someone brought it over from England and thought it would be lovely in our gardens, but it is incredibly invasive. We talked about Mother Nature hating bare ground. Well, this stuff gets in there and it takes away any kind of opportunity for our native woodland plants to survive in this. This stuff just will climb trees. If you've got it climbing your tree and it goes all the way up, you want to just cut right here with your pruners. Just give it a cut, and it will stop it from going any further, and then you're going to have to dig out at the base to get rid of this stuff. So this is, you can see it's already attached itself to the tree, and it'll eventually kill it. Another one that, and we think it's probably somebody's thrown a hanging basket into this area, because a lot of hanging baskets come with this stuff. Just don't throw it in your compost, throw it in your garbage. Awful. And then another one that's on the invasive list is this periwinkle, and people just love it in their gardens, but it won't allow any native plants to come in. Nothing else will grow. If you've got vinca in your garden, this will just take over. And you know, we think of our pollinators, and they prefer the native plants. So if you've got something like this in your garden, this is not a favorite. So we don't want that. And another one is the Himalayan blackberry. And it is prickly, thorny. That's why we need our gloves. And the only way to manage that is to cut it right at the base. And you've got to keep going in. You've got to repeat to get rid of that. Same with the ivy. You just got to keep at it, making sure you get all the roots out. Vinca, same thing. They'll just, if you've got bare space, they'll come right back. The secret is to fill your bare space. The other one that is really, really dangerous, and it's popped up into the city of Richmond in many different areas, it's Japanese knotweed. And this park had some of the Japanese knotweed, but the city came in. Basically, they got to cut it, and they got to use a herbicide. This is the only way to get rid of it. In England, if you have Japanese knotweed on your property, you can't sell your house, you can't get a mortgage, it could even cover your house. So it's a really, really invasive plant. If you find it on your property, notify your city, and they'll help you eradicate it. We're going to start with common weeds we have in our garden. Some people think they're a lovely flower, but it's a creeping buttercup. So we've dug this out, and I'll just show you a little bit about it. You can see the leaves, they almost look like a geranium. So some people get confused, and then of course they have this beautiful yellow flower, and then people think, well, that'd be awesome to have in the garden. The thing about buttercup is this is why we wear gloves. This plant gives off a sap, and that sap can be very irritating to some people's skin. This is an important one to get out of the garden. This is why it's called creeping buttercup. You can see that it's moved along, it's creeping. Right here, it's created a new root. It goes all the way under this berberis, and it's creating new plants as it goes along. So this is one you definitely need to get out. But you can see that all these weeds have taken over the plants that we've chosen to be into this garden. So first of all, we'll start off with bindweed or binderweed, and you can recognize it by this very thin vine that grows up a plant. And some people call it wild morning glory, but it's actually not a morning glory. It's called the bindweed. And what you want to do is you want to cut this back to the ground. And you know, people look for all kinds of things that they can do that's a kind of a one-shot wonder. Well, unfortunately with weeds, you got to keep at it. Weed, we clip it right at the garden, or right at the ground level. And we're going to have to keep an eye on this area. In your garden, in your area, you can use boiling water. You would boil it up and you pour it on the plants when it's very, very hot. But you can only do this if you have no other plants in the garden, because it'll kill everything. Most people use it on driveway cracks, in a vegetable garden where there's nothing else in there, or along roadways. So your best bet is to clip this off right at the soil and keep doing it. Here is another weed in our garden that I was mentioning is horsetail. And horsetail is an ancient plant, and it's got a very hardy, tough root system, so it takes a lot of work to get rid of this. Again, I'm mentioning that, you know, people are hoping for the one-shot wonder, and that's why they tend to go for chemicals, but think of what you're doing to pollinators. 1/3 of our food that we eat comes from the pollinators. Don't kill them. So this one you have to go down and you have to dig out the root. And I've got that out. So that's an easy one to get rid of. but you got to go back to the area repeatedly. So I'm going to just take out the plants that are in it to show you how much they cover the plants that we've chosen to be in here. Dandelion shows up in a garden. You know, this is the first flower for the bees in the spring, but when it gets like this, it's going to blow all over and you're going to get dandelions pretty much everywhere. So you really want to get at this before it gets to this stage. I even let a few come on our lawn just because our bees come out so early, and it's nice to give them that first bit of nectar with the dandelion. So dandelions are pretty easy to get out. You dig way down and you dig out the root. Unfortunately, this one is already spread because of the seeds, but this is a dandelion. This is a sticky wicket, and you can see that it is a very sticky plant, and when this flowers and goes to seed, it will spread everywhere, and it just climbs over very much like the binderweed. In fact, we got some binderweed that's mixed with the sticky wicket, so you can see that that's very difficult to get out. I just pull it out, and we got to keep on it. And then you see, look at this guy. We let him go, this whole beautiful, gorgeous berberis would be covered with this sticky. I got him out by the roots, the sticky wicket. And it's just starting to flower, so this is going to travel if we don't get it, because it'll go by seeds. And clean up the area before you move on. Stay focused on cleaning up an area. And just again to remind you, this is not a one-shot wonder. Don't use chemicals. There's all kinds of tools to help us out here. While I'm in here cleaning up this area, for tulips, and you saw that in a previous video, you don't want to cut down the tulip. You don't want to dig it out. You want to leave it and let the leaves keep bringing the nutrition to the bulb, and we'll just let it die back. So we go in and we cut off all the tops, so that because that's a bit of a seed pod up there, and we just let that continue to give nutrition down to the bulb, so we have beautiful healthy bulbs, and they divide too, so we get more than one bulb. We'll get 2 or 3 out of here. Ground alder is, or goutweed, some people call it, and some of it's variegated, and quite often I see the question on gardening Facebook sites, is this a lovely plant? So this is actually not one you want in your garden, because it creeps along and it works its way between plants, and the next thing you know, it's all you've got in your garden. I use my Japanese hoe, the Kana spade. I get underneath and I get under the soil, and I actually remove the white creamy roots. But that only takes it right here. It actually is creeping along all through here. So this is probably the best method for this ground elder. You can see that there's nary a plant that we want showing up over in that area. But I'll just, for demonstration purposes, show you what we've got to do. And it's going to take a team of us to get this out of here. But you want to dig up all the plants that are in the area with a shovel, and then out of that mess you dig up, you want to tease out just the plants you want to keep. So, and you get all the soil off of it to make sure that's a lily of the valley. That's all that's going to go back into the ground. This is, here we are, the ground elder mixed in with the lily of the valley. So the ground elder has all these roots, and I've got some other plant in here too that I want to keep. I want to keep this, it's called a juga. I want to keep this ajuga but I got to make sure there's no ground elder in that, so that one will stay. But this guy is not going to stay in our garden. And these roots just creep along. You could even cut off, dig out, and that root will continue to move along and grow in other areas. So this is not a plant that you want ever to take hold in your garden, because my goodness me, you will not have any other plants surviving. There's our lily of the valley, which the French absolutely love. They make bouquets in April. They get a beautiful white flower that smells heavenly. So we want to keep that plant. And then again, in that mess. So you're going to have to dig up a spot, and there's a bulb. It's probably, oh, this is another invasive one. This is yellow flag iris. And the reason I can tell that is because the tuber, I'm going to get rid of this guy. The tuber, this is a small one. This is invasive. This is on the BC invasive list, Metro Vancouver invasive list, Pollock Park invasive list. And we've got a lot of it in the park that we're working to get rid of. This little tuber, the way you can tell it's a Japanese, or the yellow flag iris, is the pink little tuber here. So you snap the tuber, and that one has to go. We cannot allow that to be in our garden. So you can. Okay, I've showed you some of the common weeds in a garden. There's plenty more.
The most important part is to prevent weeds from coming into your garden. And the best time to get at weeds is in the very early spring. When your ground is bare, should have a ton of leaf mulch on it, but from the fall. But you know, you've got bare ground, and you see any little weeds coming up, get them out right away. And then another thing you want to do is you want to make sure that your soil is healthy. If you have very clay soil, you're going to get horsetail, because it's not got very good drainage. You're going to get some weeds in your garden if you have very poor soil. So you don't even want to start planting until you get your soil to a good quality. And a good quality soil is loam. So in this garden, every fall, every spring, all through the year, we continually put leaf mulch and compost on our garden. So we've created this beautiful loam in this garden. So that's a very important part, is to keep your soil healthy. Make sure your soil is healthy, so then you've got your plants that will take over and cover any of those bare spaces. What you want to do also is, when you're planting your garden, is plan it so that you don't have bare spaces. And the way we've created this garden here, we've got this is a hot corner and it gets pretty dry here. So we've got this autumn joy sedum right here. It gets huge. So we know that we're going to have not much space in the garden. But what we could do is have some early to mid-spring, late spring plants growing right here. Like we've got a hosta here. We got to watch this hosta because it might get covered by this. But there should be some plants right in here while this is growing that will eventually die back when the sedum comes along. So you don't want to leave any bare spaces. And then watering. So you got to water. Some people plant a garden and then walk away and can't figure out why their plants aren't growing. So we water the plants that we want to keep. We don't water the weeds. So we water the plants that we want to keep. So that's very important. Watering early in the morning, so you're not creating any kind of disease on the leaves. We're lucky here we've got an irrigation system, so we wouldn't be able to keep up, but at home we water early in the morning. Then another very important component is this is 2-year-old leaf mulch. The city actually provides it to us here, park, but we use compost in our garden. And you've got to do this. This is gold. So mulch, 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 mulch. What it does is it adds nutrients into the soil. It keeps down weeds. So you can see there isn't any weeds growing here. And what we did was we cleared out the weeds in the spring, and then we put this leaf mulch on top, and we continue to add leaf mulch. And it stops the weeds from coming up. Or if they do, they're very, very minimal. And you can't use enough compost or mulch in your gardens. So take your time, keep an eye on your areas that you're struggling with. Keep diligently creating beautiful soil so that you're encouraging your lovely plants to come through instead of the weeds. And there's no magic formula. Don't use chemicals, stay organic, and you're going to have a beautiful garden.
Thank you so much for visiting us again, and I hope you've learned some great tips about weeds, staying away from chemicals, being vigorous of keeping them out of your garden. And the most interesting thing is in Pollock Park we've got all kinds of activities and areas and things that will help with our pollinators. And one of them is we have beehives, and they're actually managed by Ian Lai, the director of Richmond Food Security, which the office is located right in Pollock Park. So these beehives, you can see, are very active. We get some delicious honey out of it in the fall. But look at the buttercup. So we're happy to see the buttercup here because this is helping the bees. There was a mass of dandelions, and you can see that they're all ready to go to seed right now. And this is a perfect area. This is not a garden. This is a spot for all our pollinators. We get the benefit of having these beehives in Pollock Park because what do? They come and they visit all our flowers. So we're looking forward to our next video, and we'll see you then. Boy or girl? Boy. Jack. How old are you?
8 months.
Oh, you're so cute.